This is Daniel Meyer, Music Director of the Erie Philharmonic, and I'm so happy to be with two of the members of our wonderful cello section of the Erie Philharmonic. I'm here with Jeff Singler and Will Teegarden, and it's so great to see you guys. I can't believe it's been so long since we've been able to make music together. First of all, welcome to Coffee Chat. We're glad that you're both here.
Thanks. Good to be here. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Yes, very excited.
So Jeff, you are Cleveland-based, I understand, and
Yeah.
Will, are you in the Pittsburgh area?
Yes. Squirrel Hill.
So Jeff, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know that the Erie Philharmonic isn't your only gig. I know you've got a lot of things going on in your life. What is happening in Jeff Singler's life right now?
Well, right now, not a lot of performing. Mostly my life involves, my family. We're all at home together these days a lot, and so there's a lot of that. But I am still doing a lot of teaching. I have a studio of about 25 cello students. Not all of them are continuing during the summer, but it's close to 20 still. And I do a cello camp with my students in the summer. We do a whole bunch of extra things that we wouldn't do normally during the school year, including a recital. And so trying to figure out how to make all of that happen this year has been very exciting and interesting. And
yeah, how are things different now that you can't actually meet your students in person? Are you giving all your lessons via Zoom, or how does that work?
Yeah, I'm using FaceTime, Google, and Zoom for things. I've actually found that Zoom is the best one because you have some audio settings that you can play around with. There's sound just doesn't always come across great on some of the other ones, but yeah, there's a lot of lessons I'm giving by Zoom. I have a studio class that I have all of my students meeting me online on Wednesdays on Zoom, and we play for each other. We were learning some cello ensembles and some duets, and it's been very, very interesting trying to figure out how to put on the recital because everything's social distancing. We're not going to be giving a live performance with a live audience. We're going to be doing a virtual concert, which will be streamed over YouTube, and the kids are recording all of their parts using click tracks, and I'm putting them all together using audio software. And
Wow.
and everyone's doing at least 4 different things. We got solos, we got duets, and we've got several cello ensembles. So I don't know what I was thinking, but it's been really.
It sounds like you're working on a second career as an audio producer. I mean, that's
Oh my gosh,
intense work.
I got this audio program way back in college just to use when I was putting together things to put online or promotional materials or whatever. And so I was like, this won't be a big deal. This will be fine. And so it's turned into a huge project, but it's coming together. We're almost all the way to the end of it. So it's looking. At the beginning, I started to become afraid that I had bitten off a little too much, but I think it's starting to come together. I think it's going to work out, and I think the kids are really stepping up to it. So I'm really proud of them.
Very cool. How about you, Will? Are you Zooming with 25 people at a time?
Not 25 people at a time. Jeff, I commend you on that. That's incredible because I have just managed to do one studio class with my 10 total students that I have. And that didn't require any audio engineering. It was just all of us piling in on Zoom together. But I've been trying to get guests for them to come and have a second opinion other than just me prattling off my constructive criticism of them all the time. Actually, another person who plays in the section frequently, Christina Chen, was the most recent one. Jeff, I'd probably love to have you come and join if you'd be willing to do that at some point.
Absolutely.
I would love that. But seriously, I commend you so much on doing that work with the recording because all of us know how long and how much time that takes, even if you do have the best software and recording capabilities to do that.
It's fun. We made a little recipe for how the students. I made a little recipe. My wife helped me with this. We made a little recipe for how to get kids to record things, and step 1, step 2. These are the ingredients you need. How to serve it at the end, like it's with a garnish of. It's got a big thing. Yeah, it's been a project, but it's been fun.
Well, isn't your wife? Correct me if I'm wrong. She also teaches, correct?
she teaches orchestra in Bay Village schools, and we kind of did something a little bit like what I'm doing for my summer camp. I kind of helped her. She's helping me now, but I kind of helped her with her orchestra, her school orchestra concert in the spring. They kind of had to shift gears and turn their spring concert into a virtual concert, and I kind of helped them do their recordings and mix all of that too, so they could put a virtual concert on.
It's amazing because I would think, I think that professional musicians don't need to learn how to play with a click track until they really get up into the pros. And for instance, when we did our movie concerts with the Philharmonic, those are all click track driven. And just a brief explanation. In order for us to stay with the film, there has to be some element that's consistent. And in the case with these films, a lot of them come with little tick tick. Somebody will go in over the film and actually lay in what we call a click track, which is literally like the click of a metronome that is laid on top of the music. And ostensibly, that click track is what keeps us all together. It's what enables us to understand what's happening. Now, the maddening thing about the whole thing is that the click track is never consistent from beat 1 to beat 4 or beat 5 or whatever, however many beats there are in a measure. It's never consistent because what you're doing is you're laying the click on top of a live performance. And as we know, being the human beings that we are, there is an ebb and flow to the way that we talk. There's an ebb and flow to the way that we play music. We don't play like metronomes. We certainly practice with them so that we understand, oh, we're really rushing here, or, oh, we really need to keep a consistent beat going from this section to the next. But at the end of the day, we never actually turn on our metronomes and play along to them to public. It would be dreadful. But that's essentially what we do when we're playing along to a movie, because we're literally trying to chase the movie. We're trying to stay just up with the movie enough that when we draw our bows or play a note through a tuba, that it's going to speak at exactly the same time as that wonderful studio orchestra did when they recorded the soundtrack. So it's kind of a mind-blowing thing to have to go through. And some musicians will put in the click track and just say, oh, forget it. I'm just going to rely what I'm seeing from the stick or what I'm used to. And then others are actually, they find it rather helpful to follow along with the click track so they know precisely where they are in the score. But I think what you're talking about, Jeff, and what you're talking about, Will, is trying to figure out ways for musicians to be together, to play together in an ensemble when we're not in the same room. And
Right.
so essentially what you do is you set up a consistent beat or a beat that everybody can expect to play to. And then you ask them to follow that as their conductor, for lack of a better word. But it's tricky, right, Jeff? I mean, it's not as easy as I've just explained it.
Well, I mean, the thing that I think my students are discovering, and I'm renewing for myself, is just how much we rely on other musicians to not necessarily as a fault, actually, but just how much we rely on each other to know where the pitch is and to know where the beat is, because we can see each other and we know where to meet each other. And just playing into the blackness of empty space, you have to take an excessive level of responsibility for that when you make a recording, in order for it to just line up with someone who can't hear you, see you, or know, you're recording in a different space in a different time. And to be able to put those things together, you need that click, and you got to figure out how to do it. And the weird thing to try to line up is when you've got things like a ritardando at the end of a piece or something. Do you decide just to not have it? Do you decide not to do that slow down, that dramatization, or do you figure out how to get this, how to communicate to everyone exactly how it's going to be, because you can't exactly do that with a metronome.
Will, what's your experience with that? I mean, how do you feel when you have to play to a click track?
I completely agree with both of you that no, you're totally fine. It happens. I make sure my phone's off too, or something. But it's a different skill set that you're developing, because you have to, in a way, rely on your own imagination to kind of bring all those nuances and different sounds to life, which normally is very easy to kind of conjure up when you're inspired by other musicians and you can interact musically with other musicians. So that aspect is a big challenge. But it's crazy. You really don't know how much fluctuation in time you take as a player, rhythmically speaking, until you have that click track in your ear. I find when I've done my own recordings just on top of each other that I'm a split second behind here or there, and it's maddening to go back and to do that. And what I want to say, I'm not trying to be overly complimentary, but Jeff, the fact that you're having your students do this, it's going to give them a whole other skill set and challenge them in ways that, I mean, it's challenging all of us in ways we didn't expect to have to make this type of practice and performance necessary, but it will expand their abilities and the way they think about ensemble playing and cello playing in ways that we probably wouldn't have accomplished otherwise. And so that's a brave venture and a very good thing, I think, for your students.
Well, you're hitting the nail on the head, Will, and I appreciate it. It's exactly the way I've been trying to sell it to them, because I don't think it's frustrating for them too, and you know, keeping them in on keeping them bought in on the project. You know, I've been saying exactly what you're saying right now. They are progressing in their understanding of rhythm and intonation, and in how music becomes music, how ensemble music becomes ensemble music, in ways that they would not be if they were not in this situation this summer. So just keeping them in on it. So you're absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head. Thank you. And thank you.
Of course, no, thank you. And I just realized, Maestro Jeff, there's probably a question that audience members might be missing. Why do we have to do the click track? Why can't we just do this over Zoom like we are right now? Shall we?
Yeah, good point.
Oh,
yeah.
Can we all try to clap together?
Exactly. Well, I remember a really great demonstration that my conducting teacher gave us, probably in week 1 or week 2, at the Aspen Music Festival. This was Murray Sidlin, who was teaching our conducting course. And he essentially asked 2 of us to come up to the front of the class, 2 conductors, and stand back to back so that you couldn't see the other conductor and that you couldn't really feel them. All you could rely on is your ears and your intuition. But he's essentially got us all started on a tempo. He has maybe even turned on a metronome, I don't remember, but we got a consistent click and everybody was agreeing to it. And we conducted, he asked the 2 conductors to conduct along with the click. And then he said, at one point, I'm going to stop clicking. And I just want you to continue on in that tempo. Just keep going, keep going. And within the span of 3 or 4 beats, there was already a divergence between one and the other. I mean, and believe me, we were going with that click for at least 16, 17 beats. I mean, plenty of time for that to be ingrained and to know exactly where the next beat was about to fall. So then to watch that and watch these arms start to go at different rates was just kind of mind blowing to all of us. And I think it drove home exactly the point that you guys are trying to make, which is, you know, we all march to the beat of a different drummer, apparently. And, you know, no 2 musicians, you know, sense time, perceive time, and perceive acoustic in quite the same way. And I wanted to ask you guys, have you ever been with a stand partner where your senses of rhythm just didn't align? I mean, what happens then? How do you cope with something like that?
Yeah, I think his name was Will. No.
Guilty.
No, I'm just kidding. I always enjoy sitting with you, Will, very, very much.
You're not supposed to tell him this. He'll revoke my tenure, so I don't want.
You're a lot of fun to sit with, Will. No, actually, you know, I mean, since I started talking, I guess I should answer first. I don't actually have an answer to that where I have had a stand partner who has been problematic in that way. So I don't you know, no. The answer is no. I haven't.
No, it's okay. I'm going to be negative. The negative Nancy of the 2. I have had a stand partner. I'm not going to go into specifics. It was not in recent years in anywhere locally, but this individual had a habit of whenever there was a smaller rhythm, there was some sort of psychological disconnect, cognitive dissonance, if you will, that the smaller rhythm, no matter how large or how slow we were traveling, how slowly we're playing, it just meant we're going to go faster and faster. And that's difficult to read because there's almost kind of, I guess, how would you describe it? A telepathy or just reading subtle symbols or reading body language with your stand partner, that you have to do that. And whenever this individual saw the smaller rhythms, that the sort of open body language that you share with your stand partner kind of turned off, and just kind of tunnel vision going right through. And it's not so much that they have poor rhythm. I guess when you get in a situation like that, it's not that they have poor sense of rhythm. They're just kind of, as an individual musician, they're feeling their own thing. Sorry, I'm talking way too much about this. You have to maintain this sort of open sense of communication. I'm gesturing this way because Jeff is currently to my left. You have to keep this sort of open communication, silent communication, visually and I guess orally when you're playing. And so not only are you trying to express yourself, you're trying to give your stand partner something to understand and kind of be a team with. Yeah.
No, I've certainly witnessed that in all those sections, but you notice that even as strikingly, if not more so, in the brass sections, because they're all creating an embouchure and they're all buzzing their lips and all trying to get the air through that mouthpiece and out of the column of their instrument at the same time. And of course, the wide variation between mouthpiece sizes and sizes of instruments, that all plays into how quickly they can actually get that sound through their instruments. So essentially you have to make accommodations. You know, if you're the tuba player and you want to be in the same time realm as the oboe player or the violins, you just have to play what you would perceive to be way ahead of where you think you should be, so that by the time your sound arrives there, it's going to match. But I think, Will and Jeff, you're even talking on a micro level, like your own stand partner, the person with whom you sit throughout the entire orchestra concert. There has to be some element of a meeting of the minds and a meeting of the psyche. And I think you're right, Will. There's something extra sensory about it. There's some extra sense that's involved in perceiving and anticipating what your stand partner is going to do and what you need to adjust and to be able to play together with that person.
Exactly. And also at the flip side of that is you can almost be too much of a follower and you're no longer contributing your own individuality to it. It's a give and take, I suppose, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. That's the art of music making is give and take. But I mean, certainly there is that understanding or that implicit nature of, I trust that you've come to this rehearsal ready to play, and that you're not going to be struggling with your notes or your rhythms, because frankly, we need to be together, and we need to be together with the rest of the orchestra. We need to figure out what that joker is doing up in the front with a stick in his hands or her hands.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit more about just things beyond music. I mean, how are you guys getting through this time? What are you doing? Are you listening to any music? Are you watching any television? Are you taking long walks? Have you taken up a new sport? Are you baking sourdough bread? I mean, what sorts of things are you guys doing to make it through this crazy time?
Jeff, you want to go first? Or?
No, you can go first, Will. I keep answering first.
Sure. I've been doing lots of odd things. I just very recently redid the living room, so it was much messier. I'm not going to tell you how messy, but it was at one point. I've just in the past week and a half or so started Duolingo, their language program, learning Spanish. Don't ask me to speak any of it just yet. I'm getting there. I've been walking, exercising, cooking a lot, and slowly actually having in-person interactions with some friends. We have a large front porch that you can maintain a safe space, one end, and it's very nice to have mid-afternoon chats out there, much like we're doing now, over coffee, and other similar conversations actually have been had on this porch. I should have sat on this porch actually. It's very beautiful out there. Anyway, I've had similar conversations with other musicians on that porch about how we're coping and what we're doing. And also, final thing, lots of TV, more TV than I care to mention. That's all. That's what I've been up to.
Any guilty pleasure shows or any binge watching we should know about?
I've been really enjoying Queer Eye. And there's another show. It's It's in German, subtitled English, called Dark. And if any of you are familiar with Stranger Things on Netflix, this one's kind of like it's very similar in atmosphere and situation and plot. So if you're dying for more Stranger Things, a television show, I highly recommend Dark. And like the name suggests, it is dark. So the thematic material is a bit heavier, just family discretion advised. That's all I'll say. But very good show.
How about you, Jeff?
Well, I mean, we're trying to make summer happen as best we can. Obviously, we're not going to the city pool yet. I'm not sure if that'll even happen at all this summer, but so we've been doing wading pool stuff in the back. The kids are playing with, my two daughters are playing with like water Barbies and stuff, like do that kind of thing. Like we, make the yard looks great, man. That kind of thing. Teaching, this is my studio. It's the only clean space in the house in front of the fireplace. So teaching here. Cooking, we have been cooking more. We've been kind of trying to explore one new region and one new recipe every week. So we made Mexican mole a few weeks ago. Tried a recipe for that. We made some Nepalese dal bhat last weekend. Doing some things like that. It's been kind of fun. Lots of coffee. So much coffee. We have a giant 5-pound bag.
It's important. You need rituals. You need things that kind of get you through each day, whether it's brewing a cup of coffee. And then I love it. I love that you guys are also experimenting a little bit with recipes. I love Korean food, and we are very low that we really have not gone out at all to a restaurant at this point. We've been doing all of our cooking at home, and so I ventured into bibimbap, and
nice.
I loved doing it. It was so fun, and you're cooking all the elements individually because they all have different cooking times, and you finally put it together in a pretty bowl and present it to your family, and they're like, "Whoa, that looks pretty good." But it's by no means, authentic. I don't claim to be authentic. I would love to spend, a week with a very fine Korean chef and just figure out what I'm doing wrong and what I need to do to improve. But it's an enormous amount of fun.
It also sounds like your family's a little bit more willing to be flexible about new recipes than my family has been. At least
well, I mean, to be fair, there's a few things that I leave off my 6-year-old son's plate because I just don't think he could handle it. And he's actually game to try hot sauce, but the other day he put
Really?
way too much, and then he stirred it all together, and his head was about to explode.
Yeah, we made the mole, and I think both of my kids ended up eating a hot dog that night. Oh well. Yeah.
I haven't been graced with those experiences yet, but oh my gosh, I wanted to ask both of you tips for mole and tips for Korean food, because actually both of those have been kind of on my radar. If this turns into a food talk show, that's fine by me, but I don't know what you...
Well, the secret to bibimbap is sesame oil. You've got to have sesame oil. That's that really distinctive kind of smoky flavor that helps flavor the mushrooms and spinach or any other kind of veggies that you might. And then of course the carrots, you just kind of blanch those. You don't need to don't need to kill those. Those can actually still be a little bit crispy. Yeah. And then I don't know if you have a rice cooker, but it certainly helps. I mean, it makes a big difference because you can just pour it in, let it do its thing, and it always comes out right.
That's right. Yeah, the rice
always comes out right, which is
awesome.
Yeah, the mole. I mean, I don't know that I have any great tips. You got to have a good recipe, and it takes all day.
Okay. Do you pound it with a mortar and pestle, or do you blend it, or?
No. You know what? I mean, we cheated a little bit on some of that. I mean, I know that the Oaxacan grandmother making it, is gonna do that on the mortar and pestle and spend forever doing that. We definitely cheated on some of that. We had some powdered stuff. We had some things that we didn't. Like our onions were maybe not minced to the degree that usually would be. Like we just we're. We didn't have enough time for that, but we had a few compromises, but yeah.
That's, yeah. I understand completely. I just bought a blender that I've been doubling as a food processor, and I have a mortar and pestle, and so I have all these toys to play with, and I'm just trying to figure out what I can do next. Daniel, I don't know if are you familiar with what's called a bosom?
No, what is that?
It's basically just a giant roast pork shoulder. I made that 2 weeks ago. I bought 15 pounds of pork shoulder. It's way too much, but it lasted me a week and a half, and I still shared it with friends and family. But it's basically a standard roast. You make a dry rub for it, and then put in the oven for 6 hours. But you make little side sauces with it, just like a bean paste and chili sauce with some rice vinegar, ginger scallion. It's delicious, but it's so versatile too because the pork just comes out like pulled pork, and
Yeah, I was going to say I'm a big barbecue fan, so that would be right up my alley. I would
you
love
can
that.
do anything with it. I made tacos, I made fried rice, I just had it over lettuce sauces. It's highly recommend. I mean, don't buy 15 pounds one day, but it's worth it. All right, sorry, I'm getting way too excited about food now.
No, that's a good thing about being quarantined is that you get excited about things that you barely pay attention to in our regular lives. I mean, I know during the year when we're playing an orchestra, I mean, I'm racing from one thing to the next. I'm lucky to actually find time, and I like thank Mickey Stars that Erie has Wegmans because there's so many really good things to choose from, and there's good prepared foods, and there's things that you can get quickly that are of good quality. I'm being paid Wegmans for this.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
It's a little buzz marketing, isn't it?
I grew up in
No, but I'm just grateful we have it because I'm not home. I don't have access to my regular kitchen things, so it's just nice to have some good things on the go. But I mean, that's just to say that there isn't time to sit and think about a meal and plan it and pull something out of the freezer in the morning and have it defrosted and be ready to. It's just like that's kind of a refreshing thing to do, and I'm enjoying that aspect of it. But man, the trade-off is not getting a chance to make music with you guys, and that makes me sad.
yeah.
Soon.
Yeah, soon, very soon. Can I ask a question of you guys? Have you guys had any musical projects that you've kind of had on the back burner that you're now taking time to study? I mean, I imagine we all have a multitude of things, but anything particular come to mind?
Jeff, how about you?
I think I don't have a good answer to that because my time has been so accounted for in just the things that I'm doing. This summer cello camp has been a really demanding project as far as my time is concerned. So I mean, I guess you could count that. And then otherwise it's kind of just been how about my family with all the things that they have going on. So
Absolutely.
I
No,
don't have a good answer. Something new that I've been doing.
no,
How about you,
that
Daniel?
actually answers my question. I mean, you're having to completely adapt and kind of shift your teaching and your music making on its head, and that is a manifestation of that, for sure.
Sure.
Yeah, for me, it's discover chamber orchestra literature because
Mhm.
that's what we're going to have to do to stay working.
Yeah.
I teach at Duquesne University, and we can't even put the whole orchestra together in the same room. So the idea there is to split the orchestra into smaller chamber orchestras and study that literature, and then of course study the major works of Tchaikovsky and Dvorak, but do it in sections. All the strings together, all the winds together, but not putting the whole orchestra together. And then going forward with our other orchestras, and even in our planning for Erie, we're really just trying to figure out how many people can we safely put on a stage and still distance and stay safe. And we're exploring all those opportunities because we really want to get back to music making, even if it's not in the sense that we're used to seeing on the Warner Theater stage. So we're really doing our best to figure that out right now. So to some degree, and it's just making plans and having those plans get thrown out the window the next week and then revamping those plans. And that's where we are at this point. But we really are working very hard to see what we can do to make sure that we're still in music and as many musicians together as we can.
Needless to say, we all miss it very much, and we miss the Erie community, for sure.
Well, Will and Jeff, I want to take this opportunity to thank you both because you guys are just really good guys, and you're a wonderful to have in the orchestra. We have a wonderful group of human beings that make up the Erie Philharmonic, and not only are you really fantastic musicians and very serious about what you do, but you also care, and it just it makes me humbled, but it also makes me hopeful for the future, that we are going to really celebrate being back at Warner. We can be back in Warner Theater. We're going to celebrate when we can be back together making music in whatever format it's going to be. And I just want to take this opportunity to wish you both the best, and hope that it's not very long before we see each other again in person.
Definitely. Thank you. Same to you, and to you, Will.
Thank you both. Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Thank you so much for joining us for Coffee Chat.
Of course.
Bye.
Thank you guys. Bye.